Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Pitch Talk.
We are fans of football dropping vlogs, videos and podcasts on the beautiful game.
Check out our videos on YouTube and Instagram's IGTV,
including special feature segments,
5 minutes with the G,
the straight shooting view,
coaching with JBK. We produce, record and edit video content
and audio on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts,
Verbal, Podomatic,
Anchor,
Spotify
and other podcast platforms.
Join the Pitch Talk revolution on Twitter, Instagram,
Facebook
and www.pitch-talk.com.
The pitch is where we eat.
The pitch is where we sleep.
And the pitch is where we talk.
I can see you now. I can see you now and then. I can see you now.
Pitch Talk podcasts and videos are brought to you in association with LE Bikes. Begin your journey into electric bikes. Visit lebikes.co.uk. Welcome to
Coaching with JBK. Welcome. It's yours, JBK, with another JBK episode talking about relegation between women's and men's football and how it affects the game at the club level, particularly Leicester City and Reading's troubles this season, both on the men's and the women's side, and how that has affected the club overall. So hopefully you get the chance to hear this one. Definitely have a think about it. Have a talk in amongst yourselves.
You know what? That is not a great sign to see a team go part-time after relegation. To give a kind of comparative analogy to an extent, you look at Ibis Eagles. We last season had 5 teams. We went down to 4 this season because we couldn't maintain it. Our 5s got relegated, and this season as well, pretty much 2/3 of about halfway through the season, we went down to 3 teams. And obviously now there's the question: is there actually going to be a club at all next season? So it's never good when you shrink unless you've got a plan in terms of recruitment and a long-term plan, and you just have to kind of balance costs and balance the books for a year or two. Then it's never usually a good sign when you're shrinking and getting rid of teams. Really isn't.
It's the same problem for most teams, most clubs in grassroots football, and because I'm in the women's game, it's probably more prominent in the women's game. When a club of their stature, they've got a status of being a top-tier talented club. But now, with that status, they now no longer need to run an academy of some sorts, which in the women's game is now called an ETC, Emerging Talent Centre. Which means that a lot of players will probably be let go from Reading, or they will probably drop down the levels and start playing in the Junior Premier League, and that might actually go back to regionals, and then go back where that's regional, and then that might actually take it down to county again, which means that as a team that's been up there for such a long time, all of a sudden it's a rapid decline of what it really is, and to be in the top tier of any elite division. So it's a tough one. It's probably been coming for quite some time. I don't know what it was to do with really, in terms of how they've been relegated, but a lot of their players that were there last season either retired or didn't renew their contracts, and they've not really added to the players that they have, and a lot of them are an agent team. So it's a difficult one, especially when people talk about money, but to see it going into the direction of, well, the Medeski might be a problem, and you might have to where you're paying. The problem is that as soon as they started playing at the Medeski, the cost went up to fund matches. But because the men's team weren't doing so well, and now the men's team have been relegated, they don't have enough money just to even keep that going. So maybe that's where the costs are being run. And it's just like Leicester City. Leicester City almost had a double relegation again. So it was between Leicester and Reading. If you look at not just the sides here, but it's between those two sides that somehow almost lost the problems that came with it, which was Leicester City were gonna be relegated to the championship in the men's side, as well as the women's section, and all that was down to the fact that they just went and bought a new training facility. They're like, well, you've now got to either maintain this status, or you've got to excel in it. One of the two. Can't be both. So yeah, interesting way that it's gone. Interesting way.
You know what? Yeah, that's some interesting stuff in there, and it's interesting that you draw the comparison in terms of almost a double relegation with Leicester as well, because of course Leicester's men's side got relegated, but their women's side, from what I've heard, just about survived. But literally this morning, as I record this, Leicester women's side have just released 12 players, even though they survived. So would you say that, like what you mentioned about Reading and the Medeski and the costs, and obviously if you're going into a lower division, if your men's side and your women's side is going into a lower division, then of course that means you're not going to be bringing in as much financially, because obviously that league won't be as big a draw, especially in the men's side's case, from Championship down to League One, and obviously in Leicester's men's side's case, from the Premier League down to the Championship. Do you think that's another one of them ones where, like, Leicester have done that cost-cutting measure? Because obviously their men's side are having to release players, and obviously their better players will depart. Obviously we mentioned that on the special feature a few weeks ago, about Leicester, and well, if they went down there, if their men's side went down, they would have their better players cherry picked. I mean, with Leicester City going down, their women surviving, but releasing 12 players, do you think that's cost cutting as well? That is the knock-on effect of the men's side getting relegated. And the reason I asked that, I said, because you mentioned about Reading and their men's side going down as well, and not really having the finances to be able to cover the Medeski, and obviously they've got to cut costs somewhere. Do you think in both these instances, with Leicester and Reading, the women's sides are getting basically sacrificed almost, because the men's side isn't run properly, or were they kind of living above their means? Or I'll be interested to hear your view on that. I said, especially with Leicester this morning, the news coming out about them releasing 12 players from their WSL side.
It's a whole host of things. I think it's more to do with the fact that the men's side got into Europe and the costs that come with that. Obviously Arsenal being there before the money was really a factor. That's probably saved Arsenal. That's the same thing with Chelsea, where they had an owner basically driving most of the wage and the budget to stay at the top level. Manchester United obviously being a global conglomerate, being on the on the stock exchange, and Liverpool having their rich history that they had, even though they weren't really in Europe for a number of years. So there were still people buying. Excuse me, sorry. There were still people buying the shirts, the merchandise, everything else, but you wouldn't know who Leicester City is. It's not the same thing as any of the excuse me, as any of the sides that I mentioned. You look at Tottenham. Tottenham, in my opinion, are in a very good place in terms of location. If you look at London, you look at North London. Arsenal were basically building up North London. Then all of a sudden, Tottenham go and sell Gareth Bale for a world record fee, and then they've got money to go and buy a new stadium. Essentially, wasn't anything wrong with the stadium that they had. Just obviously it was getting old, and they needed changes. So by the time they did, they went and bought themselves a new stadium again. Location really made the difference because Arsenal were already successful in North London. But that's where I look at it and I go, the cost of Europe hurt Leicester quite bad because they went into the Champions League after winning the league the year before, and then they went into the Europa League a year later, didn't win it, but they won this. They didn't sustain any of that pressure to get into Europe. Dropped out again, and then went and got the FA Cup. Went back into Europe. I think they needed to win the Europa Conference League, if I'm honest, to get back into just to sustain that money. But they failed at the semi-final, I think, and then obviously, as you saw, they didn't have enough funds to try and build upon what they were going to do. And then they went and bought a new training facility. So now the training facility, which cost them a lot of money to renovate, to get it right, to make it futuristic, to make it modern, and to move away from their old venue, which I went to earlier this year. Very small, very antiquate, but it's the women's section uses it now. The women's side uses it, whereas the men's side uses the new facility, the women's section. So they're now basically paying for two training grounds. Whether they actually stick with that is a different story. The women's section and the community side use the old area. And it looks good, but that's where I think the cost of getting into Europe has hurt them, and I think that's also where the cost of living has got to the cost of living crisis has got to a team like Leicester City, in terms of they needed to make things, they need to break even somewhere. So them going down to the Championship from the men's section probably made sense for them to cut costs in the women's section straight away, and I don't like that at all. Not at all. Just simply because the connection between the two parts of the club should be very clear. That if the women's section is doing well, then it shouldn't have to suffer for the men's section. But the way that it's been handled, and if I look at it from a point of view of maybe a manager or a coach, you're kind of going, right, well, we've managed to stay, but we're having to release 12 players. That's not our issue, but we do use the King Power Stadium, so we now need to put money back into the club somehow. How we're doing that, unfortunately, we're going to have to release players, but we also have to make sure that we use what's given to us and go from there. I mean, if I look at, I think it's Everton. Everton don't use Goodison Park. They use it rarely. Everton Women, I mean, they don't use Goodison Park. Rarely do they use it. What they do is that they use Finch Farm. They have a home ground at Finch Farm. So they use that instead, which makes a lot of sense. One, because you're using the training ground, so the costs are very slight. And two, it makes it easier for anybody that's using that pitch to then want to visit. It becomes an attraction to want to visit Everton a little bit more. Again, Liverpool don't use Anfield. People have said that they should, but it seems like it's a very cost-effective way to use Tranmere Rovers. I don't know if their new training ground has the facilities to host a WSL side or a WSL match, but it'd be interesting if that would become a possibility in the future. And you're looking at it and you're going, right, there's a lot less money being thrown at another facility for them just to actually be paying money into it. Yes, there's billions in one section, but it's not enough to actually go, right, we can pay for the lights, we can pay for the ground staff, we can pay for all these things that are going to need to cover a WSL match. Who else? We look at the new money that's coming into the championship in the men's section. That's a heck of a lot of money. I think it was $1 billion a year or something like that. I can't remember what it was. And that's coming into effect as soon as possible. So it might not be too bad for not the championship, but just the Football League itself, in terms of seeing more matches, gaining more views and stuff like that. And that would be good. Then you've also got there's money being filtered into the women's section, into the championship and below. So that would be good for women's football. But I think my issue really is coming down to the success that not my issue, but the issue is the success of gaining a European place, and then not being able to follow it up beyond that. And we've also got a factor in that their owner had passed away not too long after their success. So there's a lot to consider, essentially, in that situation. But Reading, I don't know what's happened to them. Double relegation. Obviously, they've gone semi-pro. Probably just that the way that the club is being run means that money needs to be shifted in order to balance the books. And if you think about it, the reason why this probably happened is because of that 6-point deduction, which, when you look back at it, the 6 points would have actually saved them from being relegated. Would have saved the men's side from being relegated. So the 6-point deduction actually hurt them badly. So yeah, that's probably another thing, is the way some places are being run, and also the price of success.
You know what? Yeah, it's there's some really interesting points you bring up there, and some questions just in regards to those points. I mean, do you think the men's side of a club should subsidise the women's game? I mean, because obviously there's so much money in the men's game, or do you reckon the women's sides need to be generating their own money, like being a completely separate entity? I mean, also as well, do you think all women's sides, whilst that side of the game is growing, should be using the men's training grounds with a view to building their own facilities in the long term? Or is a partnership kind of better? And also, in regards to your point about Leicester being in Europe as a club, I mean, do you think men's sides need to be sustainable, and is it unfair for women's sides like Reading and Leicester to suffer because their men's sides have been victims of their own success in Leicester's case, and basically living beyond their means as well, especially in Reading's case, and also the point deduction that was applied to the men's side whilst Paul Ince was in charge. Obviously the embargo as well, that didn't help with their relegation on the men's side. Yeah, I mean, do you think that it's unfair for the women's side to suffer because the men's side is just not run that well?
in terms of subsidising the women's game, that's something where to me, if you're wearing the name brand of the club, then they should be helping out. However, and here's the unfortunate comparison to this is in business, not everything is going to be paid the same way. So you're not going to have a manager that's paid the same wage as a director, or a team. Let's say a team member is not going to be paid the same as a manager, and that's the truth. So I feel like at the moment, because of the fact that it's not a viable business in the women's game at the moment, it's a bit of a tricky statement. However, I wholeheartedly think the men's game should be putting their hand into their pocket and saying, right, let's see how we can make things as fair as possible for the women's section to have the same level of support that the men get. It's as simple as that. I do think the women's game needs to generate its own money, just to make it feel like it's a standalone and it's pushing, and it has generated its own money. But nowadays, you see that sponsors are making the most out of this as well. So, with those that used to be in the WSL, when it was the Women's Premier League, Doncaster Rovers Bells, Millwall Lionesses, Fulham, all of these teams who basically found it tricky to stay in the competition, and then effectively had to start again, essentially. Doncaster Rovers Spurs probably had the better situation out of the three that I've mentioned there, where they've still got an ETC, an Emerging Talent Centre, going. And yes, Millwall have one, but Doncaster Rovers Spurs was able to do it from a little bit more higher up in the pyramid than Millwall and Fulham. But what I'm getting at is, yes, they do need to generate their own money, but at the same time, I think if you can help, then why not help if they're willing to wear the same badge as yourself? So we'll go back to the two teams that were fighting relegation, both on the men's and women's front, Leicester City and Reading. The fact that Leicester City had to release 12 of their players at the end of the season, but escaped relegation, whilst the men's team managed to got themselves relegated. It feels like it's one of those situations where the money should have been redistributed, or maybe there needs to be a new plan that needs to go ahead to ensure that that a relegation doesn't happen between the two sides. Like I said, this goes back to wearing the badge. If we're willing to have the badge on top, and we're being told that we have to wear the same, we've got to make sure that we wear the same kit and everything, then yeah, absolutely, they should be wearing. They should be able to use the same ground without question. Again, with a view to building their own grounds. You'll only know that from sort of the Premier League sides, whether they're established enough to do that. I know Arsenal do, where they pretty much ground share with the whole with everybody on it there from Monday to Friday, or whenever game day is not on. Chelsea again, another one. Manchester United. I think Liverpool do, but it's not as prominent. Everton definitely do. And what it does is that it brings down the cost of another facility being used. If the women wanted to use their own facilities, then yeah. The only thing that I'd say is a hindrance for women's football and football in general is that England is not a big country in terms of space. So to build another training facility that has to be state of the art, either next to it or somewhere else down the road, it's almost a case of how do you kind of it somewhere along the lines it's going to be too much to pay for in general. So you have to just try and work around it, and probably if it means building a bigger facility, then like Leicester did, then do so. But not everybody's got the funds for that, unfortunately. In terms of the success that Leicester had in 2016, I feel like that was a big thing because it happened to Blackburn Rovers. Now Blackburn Rovers now have a ladies team who are both, ironically, both in the Championship. If I look at it from that point of view, Blackburn have obviously won the Premier League in the past. Leicester City have won the Premier League in the past. The difference between the two was that Leicester City went down a lot quicker than Blackburn Rovers did. But the story is the same. You've managed to make it to Europe, live beyond your means, wasn't able to sustain it, and now you're fighting to get back into the top tier again. Whether they keep all their best players, a different story as well. And I think the problem with suffering among that is it's almost like a hierarchical situation. If the top team or whoever that isn't doing well, so that could be the men's side or the women's side, isn't doing well, then it does filter down to the rest of the club and essentially the business. So then you are having to cut costs somewhere. You are having to take you are forcing people to suffer somewhere, and that's the issue. And I know that going into something like this is always going to be a challenge for any club that gets relegated. It's just stopping that slide and hoping that whatever team those players have made it to, whatever level those players have made it to, they can kick on and keep them in the top tier. That in terms of Leicester. In terms of Reading, you've now got to look at one team's in League One and the other team is in the Championship. Ideally, you would want both teams in the top tier of English football, but that's not the case. And now both teams now need to either use the funds correctly, just to have a new plan, or because Reading have gone semi-professional in terms of their women's sides, they're probably going to start looking at maybe using Medeski every now and again rather than always, as the same thing will be with, or maybe going, right, we're not going to be training every day of the week as is expected with the professional teams, or not every day of the week, but 5 days for the week before you play a match on a Saturday or Sunday. It'll be the same for the team, for the men's team in League One, where they're probably going to need the funds to find players who will step up their game and find themselves going, right, we need to get back into the Championship at least. But a new plan needs to be done. Aim to ensure that equality is being met rather than a quota that's needed to be given. And what I mean by that is, rather than it being, right, we need to hit these targets, it should really be how we support in the women's game, and what do we need to do in order to ensure that the women's game is sustainable alongside the men's game. And that includes boys and girls football altogether. So that was the whole point of why there's a new conversation around it, and investment has been put in. So I think it should be something that clubs look into. In terms of the structural stuff like that, it has to start, as much as it's on the pitch, it has to start off the pitch as well. So I'd say a way of playing that brings the club together, which means that you can identify who that club is, not just by the badge. Excuse me, sorry, not by just by the badge, but you can identify it not just by the badge, but by the way that they play as well. So Southampton did it quite well for a number of years. Brighton have done it in terms of who they've recruited, in terms of the manager, the players. Southampton's model was more bring players in so that we can sell them on. Brighton's is not so far off the same thing. The only difference is that they're looking for players who will move the club forwards, not stagnate, essentially. So what I mean by stagnating is they'll still have their conversation with certain players in terms of, you guys got us to from the Championship to the Premier League, great, but really and truly we now need Premier League to first. We now need Premier League to Europa League, which will be the next challenge for them. Can we get to Europa League? Rather than it just being a bit of a challenge of, all right, well, we made it to the Europa League, but we don't know what else to do. A financial plan that incorporates all aspects of the club, with marketing and a promotion of both sets of teams getting equal exposure. So yeah, just a sponsorship comes through, everything else comes through, and everybody knows what's coming. It's as simple as that. So if Nike want to sponsor the men's team, they also have to make sure that the women's team get the same sponsorship, and that you put something in that the women will get a Nike deal, Nike football kit deal, or football boots deal in there, something like that. That essentially everybody is better off. The women's game is growing, needs to grow a further 5 years. Yeah, it does, but it's still growing anyway at the moment, so it's still helpful for what's going on. And because the business model of football is a hierarchical one, it's a challenge for a lot of people, because this business model doesn't last. It needs refreshing every single, I wouldn't say every season, but every cycle of maybe 4 to 5 years. So with those cycles, and you know where your plan is. Some people say 10 years. I say it needs to be done in 3 to 5, and then from 3 to 5, then you move it on to 5 to 8, and then 8 to 10, and then from there, if you think, yep, I'm done, or you think there's a little bit more to give, you go with that. But at the same time, I don't think that's all essentially. And last but not least, Lewis FC are an example, because yeah, as a club, they allow the fans to own the club, and also the fans who own the club have a stake in what is said and how the club is run, and that goes across the park. The men are paid equally to the women, like in Norway are, like in I think Australia as well. We have seen that certain countries don't want to do it, but at the same time, the high marquee court case between the women's and the men's, the US women and the men's US women came to pass when I think they had basically done a protest, or they said that they weren't going to play a game, which makes sense. If you know that everybody should be on the same equal playing ground, and I don't know what it was, but they did something, the men, in support of the women, and still we're still hearing that the women are not going to get paid the same. But I would hope that it's going to be one of those where the women's game can stand on its own 2 feet at some point. But whilst it can't, there should be some sort of help with the team, with the clubs and the
Entering
leagues.
average speed check zone.
The clubs and leagues that say that they want them in the top divisions. Just an opinion. What's your thoughts? Do you think that women's football needs that support or can it be a standalone operation where the men definitely do not get involved? And who is making those decisions above for women's football? That's the conversation that we need to have. Yours truly, JBK, is signing off. Join the Pitch Talk revolution.
Check out the official Pitch Talk website.
www.pitch-talk.com. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Pitch Talk.
We are fans of football dropping vlogs, videos and podcasts on the beautiful game.
Check out our videos on YouTube and Instagram's IGTV,
Including special feature segments,
5 minutes with the G.
the straight shooting view,
coaching with JBK. We produce, record and edit video content.
and
Audio on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts,
verbal, Podomatic,
Anchor.
Spotify.
and other podcast platforms.
Join the Pitch Talk revolution on Twitter, Instagram.
Facebook.
And www.pitch-talk.com.
The pitch is where we eat.
The pitch is where we sleep.
And the pitch is where we talk.
I can see you now.